Soul King Palace, Phoenix Palace. Just as the battle between the monk and Yhwach was going on, Muyang's battle was also going on. One that pierces everything, Lille, and after being resurrected by Yhwach, he showed a powerful strength. Oetsu Nemea, who had not reacted yet, instantly injured him, but after Muyang attacked, he was forced to death 3 times in a row. However, every time he fell into a dead end, he would suddenly use a special power to dissolve the originally deadly attack. That was the true power of his Script X, the X-axis. Because his true power was too powerful. Only when the battle was in a very short moment of crisis would he be allowed to open his 2 eyes and release his full power. However, when he opened his eyes 3 times in a battle, he was allowed to continue to open his eyes in the following battles. This guy is completely out of the scope of normal creatures. Leaning against a rock to recover his strength, Muyang analyzed the situation of the enemy. After using Vollständig, whether it was the form displayed or the power displayed, all of them were out of the scope of normal creatures. That terrible power really did not deserve the name of X-axis. If Muyang had not led him away from the previous battlefield, others would have been affected by this terrible power. As a subordinate 0 division of the royal family, all of them were captains, and each person was awarded a city by the Soul King. It was called 0 division, floating in the Soul King Palace in a basin, guarding the Soul King in the center. As a member of 0 division, the 0 division Oetsu Nemea was called Phoenix Hall, which was originally a place with a strange scenery. However, in the battle between Muyang and Lille, Phoenix Hall had been broken. Just as Muyang was feeling sorry for the current state of Oetsu Nemea's Phoenix Hall, a ball of spirit particles suddenly appeared in front of him. The spinning spirit particles gradually turned into the figure of Lille. After using Vollständig, he could even turn himself into spirit particles and appear anywhere he wanted. From just now, you have been dodging and had no intention of retaliating at all. Is it because you know that all the attacks you have are unable to harm me, so you have chosen to give up? 8 wings of light floated behind him, and there was a halo above his head. The appearance that Lille displayed at this moment was really like the messenger of God he himself had spoken of. Give up. It's still early. Just as he was speaking, a few more terrifying spirit particle cannons appeared in front of Lille and shot out, instantly destroying the stone behind Muyang. After avoiding Li Jiabaluo's attack, Muyang did not flee again. Instead, he raised his hand and Zanpakuto, who was in the middle of the ball, suddenly swung down. A huge sword energy left the blade and landed on Li Jiabaluo's body with a terrifying aura. Then, it passed through his body and landed on the ground, leaving a huge crack on the ground of Phoenix Hall. Is it finally a counterattack? But it's useless. After I used my true strength, no weapon could hurt me. Ordinary slashes are indeed unable to cause any damage to you. Seeing the unscathed Lille, Muyang's expression did not change. Before the other party used the power of Vollständig, he had already felt the other party's power. That power was indeed able to exempt him from his slash. Had number 88. Hyuri Gekizoku Shinten Rei. With the saber in front of him, Muyang stretched out his other hand. A dazzling bolt of lightning shot out from his palm. The dazzling lightning emitted terrifying fluctuations, as if it wanted to pierce through everything in front of him. However, it's useless. The terrifying attack once again passed through Lille's chest, not causing him any damage. Even the power of the Hado was completely ineffective. Just as he said at the beginning, no weapon could kill him. What a headache. Muyang said this, but there was no trace of distress on his face. Ryoryoku, who was emitting from his body, had a huge change. Your current appearance should be Bankai, right? The shape of Zanpakuto in his hand changed slightly, and the Ryoryoku emitted from his body also changed. According to the intelligence collected by the Invisible Empire before, Muyang's current appearance was the form after Bankai. But when did you use Bankai? Lille Barrow tilted his head, slightly puzzled, and then threw it to the back of his mind. Forget it, even, Bankai, has no meaning. Just Shinigami's, Bankai, is not enough to cause me any harm. No meaning. If that's the case, I can't agree to it. Muyang swung his saber, and a light silver slash flew towards Lille Barrow. Still not giving up. Your slash can't hurt me. As if to confirm Lille Barrow's words, Muyang's slash passed through his body again, disappearing into the distant horizon. That might not be the case. A huge wound suddenly appeared on Lille Barrow's body, bright red blood spilling out. Looks like even the so-called God's envoy's blood is still red. How is this possible? A mere Shinigami can actually injure my body. Looking at the huge wound on his chest, Lille Barrow's eyes were full of disbelief. He was the greatest masterpiece of His Majesty, the person closest to God. How could he be injured by a mere Shinigami's, Bankai? Indeed, in this state, ordinary attacks won't be able to cause you any damage. However, what caused you damage just now was not my slash, but the power attached to my slash, the power of space. What? Lille Barrow's expression changed slightly. He wanted to ask something again, but Muyang's body suddenly appeared in front of him, and Zanpakuto in his hand suddenly swung out. Wherever the blade passed, a dark line appeared, and a terrifying force was produced around the black line. Without giving Lille Barrow any time to react, the blade pierced through his neck, and the black thin line also passed through his body. Then, a terrifying force appeared. The terrifying force beheaded Lille Barrow, and blood sprayed out from his neck. The power of space is something that you cannot resist at all. Even if you are the so-called God's envoy, you cannot be immune to it. I just said that Shinigami's Bankai. Don't dream of killing the messenger of God. Lille Barrow's voice came from the corpse. The neck that had been cut, Reisher gathered and turned into a twisted face, roaring angrily. Reisher gathered quickly, and an even more powerful force burst out from Lille Barrow's body. The dazzling light flashed, and after the light, a strange creature appeared in front of Muyang. Bird head, 8 wings, 4 feet. If the previous Lille Barrow still retained some characteristics of a human being, then this thing at this time could no longer be called a human. Compared to humans, the current Lille Barrow was closer to an animal, and the strange shape brought him even more powerful strength. I am an immortal body, I am invincible, I am the messenger of God bestowed with privilege. No matter what kind of power it is, it cannot kill me, and all sinful people can only wait for death in the face of me, the messenger of God. Lille Barrow, who once again walked out from the edge of death, let out a hysterical roar. As he roared, a pair of spiritual droplets formed an arm and appeared beside him. Raising his arm, a terrifying fan-shaped light wave shot out. Muyang moved his feet and avoided the attack of Lille Barrow. The terrifying white light slanted down and cut off the entire edge of Phoenix Hall. What a terrible destructive power. The Lille Barrow in front of him made Muyang unconsciously think of Aizen, the same strange shape, the same terrible power, and the existence beyond the ordinary dimension. You actually escaped my light of punishment, what a sin. As he spoke, Lille Barrow raised his arm and launched another terrifying attack. After Muyang dodged, the streets of Phoenix Hall turned into a mess. You actually managed to dodge. That's true. Staring at someone who has committed a grave sin makes my eyes dry. Muyang glanced at the terrifying crater left behind on the ground. A trace of caution flashed in his eyes. This kind of attack, as long as it was hit once, it would be over. What's wrong? Why aren't you attacking again? Is it because you really can't do anything? That's right, facing a god messenger like me, what can you, a mere Shinigami, do? No matter what kind of attack it is, it cannot cause me any harm. That might not be the case. Muyang waved his hand, leaving a wound on Lille Barrow's body, but it recovered in the blink of an eye. It's useless. Even if you leave a wound for me, I will recover in an instant. Your strength cannot kill me. However, I'm sorry. I'm tired of playing this kind of game. After listening to the God's horn, go to hell. Lille raised his hand, and spirit particles gathered. A huge horn appeared above him, and the nearby spirit particles continued to gather. A terrifying power was brewing on the horn. Whing! A halo spread out, and a terrifying power shot out from the horn above Lille. The terrifying power of all things linked together, after being enhanced by the horn, whether it was the attack range or strength, all of them had increased several times. In an instant, half of the entire Phoenix Hall was wiped out, leaving only a small piece of edge, floating alone in the air. Why didn't you get injured by my power? As the smoke dispersed, Muyang stood silently in the middle of the air. Everything around him was turned into nothingness by Lille's attack. Only he himself was not injured in the slightest. He stood quietly in the void. As expected of one that pierces everything. Under your power, everything was turned into ashes. Whether it was buildings, plants, or even spirit particles, they all disappeared under your attack. Even space would be linked by your power. A silver light appeared around Muyang. That light emitted a strange power. He suddenly spoke irrelevant words. Time is the most ruthless. He always passes quietly and quietly. When people wake up, they find it is too late. So there are often people who say that the age and the moon are as sharp as knives. Although I don't know how you can avoid my God's horn, you can't have such good luck every time. Lille was completely confused by Muyang's words. He raised his arm and a force condensed in the huge horn in the sky. The terrifying fluctuation it emitted was even more than before. I said, the farthest distance in the world is time. In the face of Lille's terrible attack, Zanpakuto in Muyang's hand gently waved, and an insignificant slash greeted Lille's attack. Time was pulled, and space was distorted. It was clearly only a short distance, but the attack seemed to have crossed hundreds of millions of miles. It was clearly just a matter of an instant, but it seemed as if hundreds of millions of years had passed. When Lille's attack arrived in front of Muyang, it had become very small. With that meager strength, Muyang just casually raised his hand and gently patted it, completely scattering it. What did you do? In Lille's eyes, his terrifying attack that could instantly destroy a zero-division hull was easily destroyed with a raise of his hand. As you can see. Impossible. How could a mere Shinigami defeat me, the messenger of God? Lille's ugly face revealed an angry expression. His body, which could no longer be seen as a human, was twisting and stretching, continuously releasing his attacks. God's horn. God's horn. God's horn. A terrifying attack was released, and then it was easily neutralized by Muyang. The madness on Lille's face became more and more intense. Everything that was happening in front of him was completely beyond his imagination. He was the person closest to God. It's about time. After neutralizing Lille's attack again, Muyang suddenly spoke. What? After hearing Muyang's voice, Lille subconsciously opened his mouth. However, after he spoke, a strange feeling suddenly arose in his heart. Why had his voice become so old? I mean, when you died of old age, it was almost time. Hearing Muyang's words, Lille's pupils contracted slightly. Only now did he notice his own body. Unconsciously, his body had declined to the extreme, looking like he could die at any time. Impossible. As the god's emissary, it is impossible for me to age. Seeing the changes happening to his body, a trace of panic appeared on Lille's ugly face, but his mouth was still shouting loudly. Speaking of this, you are indeed worthy of praise. The time spent is much longer than I expected. Muyang was still standing there, not moving a single step. He raised the Zanpakuto in his hand and faced Lille from afar. However, the passage of time is like a saber. This saber is unavoidable. Zanpakuto waved. In the void, a short saber seemed to appear. As Muyang moved, it passed through Lille Barrow's body, leaving a deep mark in an invisible place. As the short saber fell, Lille Barrow's aura suddenly weakened to the extreme, like a candle in the wind. Impossible. I am the messenger of God, I am invincible. I am. Lille Barrow's high-pitched voice gradually fell, until it was silent. The lights of life were extinguished. What a difficult battle. Seeing that Lille Barrow's body had turned into spirit particles in the air and gradually dissipated, completely losing the breath of life, Muyang finally breathed a sigh of relief. He forced his spirit to move to the last corner of Phoenix Hall and collapsed to the ground. This was the first time he had used the attack he had just used. He still couldn't control his strength well. Although he had successfully killed Lille Barrow, his body had also taken a great burden. I wonder how the battle between Sister Kirio and the others is going. Looking into the distance, a trace of worry flashed in Muyang's eyes. Since Lille Barrow had such powerful strength, the other members of the personal guards naturally weren't any weaker. He didn't know if Sister Kirio and the others could defeat the enemy. Forget it, I should recover first. In this state, even if I rush over now, I won't be able to do anything. Ha 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 ha, facing such a powerful enemy, and fighting against three by himself, only by completing such a battle record can one be called miracle. Gerard held his long sword high in his hand and the shield in his other hand. His whole body was covered with scars, but he still stubbornly dragged Kirinji Tenjir, Hikifune Kirio, and Shutara Senjumaru. It really is like sticky candy. Tenjiro threw Zanpakuto in his hand, with a few drops of sweat on his forehead, and his face was full of impatience. This Quincy bastard, although not weak, has not reached the point where he can fight three members of Zero Division at the same time, which can be seen from the wounds all over his body. However, it is such a bastard that has caused a huge trouble for them. Obviously, they can't beat the three people, but he has been dragging the three of them, which seriously affects the development of the battle. Zanpakuto sprinkled a large piece of hot soup, sprinkled on Gerard's body, causing the flesh and blood on his body to rot, revealing the white bones. Ah, it hurts. It hurts. He shouted loudly, but Gerard's movements were not slow at all. When the giant sword swung, there was a gust of wind. The momentum caused not only did not become smaller because of the injury, but it became more violent. This guy is a monster. The more injured he is, the more powerful the power is. Maybe this is where his power lies, turning the damage suffered by his body into his own power. Hikifune Kirio said. As the battle went on, Ryuryoku, who was usually eating and drinking, was consumed violently and turned into a beautiful woman with a graceful figure and outstanding charm. In that case, a sneer appeared on the face of Shutara Senjumaru. The skeleton arms behind him danced quickly. In a blink of an eye, a close-fitting black dress appeared on Gerard's body and wrapped his whole body. Just kill him in an instant. Pfft. As the voice of Shutara Senjumaru fell, Gerard's clothes seemed to come alive and contracted in an instant, entangling his body and strangling him into a mixture of flesh and blood. The red blood splashed out from the gap of the clothes and drew a beautiful blood flower on the ground. It's over. Then, it's your turn next. The mixture of flesh and blood wrapped in black clothes twitched a few times on the ground and then stopped moving. Only dark red blood was still flowing and died on the ground. Shutara Senjumaru turned his eyes to the other Quincy, the Quincy who had not spoken a word since the beginning. His whole body was shrouded in a cloak, full of mystery. The only information so far was that he easily destroyed Hikifune Kirio's Tree of Life without any resistance. His attack did not contain Ryuryoku, and there was no way to know what power was. In the face of the attention of the three members of Zero Division, the Quincy did not have any reaction, and still stood quietly in the same place. Bang! Just as Shutara Senjumaru and others were going to take action, the huge foot suddenly fell on their side, and the foot just reached their waist. Is this a foot? Looking at the foot that suddenly appeared at his side, a trace of surprise appeared on his face. If it was just a foot, then how big would the owner of the foot be? Just as this thought flashed through his mind, a huge shadow shrouded them. Looking up, it was Gerard, who was magnified countless times. What is this? Phew! The giant version of Gerard took a breath and then let out a huge roar. My name is Gerard Valkyrie. The giant Gerard, just a roar, caused a strong storm. My holy text is, miracle, Gerard. My strength is to exchange, wounded, for, strength. As expected of a member of Zero Division, it can actually cause such a serious injury to me. After the exchange, it can actually make me so huge. This is the first time. The giant version of Gerard clenched his fist and waved it casually, which immediately triggered a storm. Feeling the powerful strength contained in his body, Gerard showed a proud smile, and his white teeth were shining. Then, use your bodies to feel my strength. Boom! The palm slammed down, and the terrifying power shattered the ground. Even the wind pressure that was released contained terrifying power. His body has become so huge, but it actually did not affect his speed. He really is a monster. Generally speaking, the size of his body could indeed bring about great power, but that was all exchanged for the reduction in speed. However, this guy completely ignored all these common sense. His strength was incredible, and his speed was even faster than before. Oh, Gerard finally used the script too. In another Zero Division, Askin put his golden hands on the awning and looked at Gerard, who had become huge in the distance and showed great power, with a relaxed look. I will tell you a little about the personal guards. The captain of the personal guards is Lille. Lille is the first Quincy who has been bestowed the script by His Majesty. His position is unshakable. However, among the personal guards, there are two other people who are special, namely Pranita and Gerard. Before they were bestowed strength by His Majesty, they already have a strong strength, and they are Quincy who have not been bestowed strength by His Majesty. In the All-Stern Ritter, only these two people were like this, and the corresponding holy text His Majesty bestowed to them was just to cooperate with the power they already had. Therefore, there are many strange rumors about the true identity of these two people. Some people say that the real identity of Pranita is the right hand of Soul King, and Gerard is the heart of Soul King. I also don't understand why there are rumors related to Soul King even though it is clear that it is a Quincy. However, the origin is unknown, but it shows unparalleled strength. It is understandable to make any incredible explanation to that kind of guy. You must think the same way, Oetsu Nemea, and Ichigo. Oh, can't you hear it? At the feet of Askin, Oetsu Nemea and Kurosaki Ichigo collapsed and almost lost consciousness, while Ishida Yuri, who was originally fighting with Kurosaki Ichigo, went missing. In the face of an opponent with strange abilities, Kurosaki Ichigo, who always only knew how to charge and kill, was completely unable to resist. As for Oetsu Nemea, the previous injury had not yet healed. After losing the support of the healer of Chilan Temple, Tenjiro, she quickly fell to the ground again. Kurosaki. Oriheim and Sato suddenly rushed out from the street on the well. When they saw Kurosaki Ichigo lying on the ground, they immediately cried out in alarm. Don't come over. Seeing the companions that appeared, Kurosaki Ichigo was shocked and struggled to open his mouth. However, the weak voice could not reach their ears at all. Moreover, facing the collapsed Kurosaki Ichigo, even if they heard his words, Sato and Oriheim would not stand with their hands folded. The right arm of the giant. Sato's arm suddenly changed. A powerful force came out of his arm and smashed down, leaving a huge hole in the ground. Whang! The moment his fist landed, a strange force suddenly acted on Sato and Oriheim, causing them to instantly kneel on the ground. What's going on? I can't stand up. I can't stand up, right? Askin put his hands in his pockets and looked down at the two people who were kneeling on the ground. This is my ability. Once I step into this pool, although it won't be, it will reduce the tolerance of the things I appoint. This time, the thing I appoint is. In other words, now in this Soul King Palace where the concentration of spirit particles is extremely high, you will be poisoned by spirit particles. Spirit particles poisoning. That's right, my ability is actually to control the amount of death in the designated object, to kill the enemy. And to designate something, a large amount of that kind of thing must be absorbed. For example, if you specify blood, you must drink a large amount of blood. However, I have drunk too much blood before, and now I don't want to play this anymore. So, before I appoint something new again, I hope you can stay here obediently. Oh, a guy who said strange things appeared here. Since the enemy can't move, wouldn't it be better to just strangle them? Yoruchi suddenly appeared behind Askin. Are you sure? A long time ago, Bambietta said the same thing. I was very unhappy at that time, but now I am even more unhappy after hearing it. Yes, there must be a limit to having no brain. He lifted his foot and kicked out, but Yoruchi dodged it nimbly. What do you mean by no brain? Are you looking down on your opponent? No, it's just that each has their own way of fighting. Manipulating death is my way of fighting, and strangling the neck is more suitable for women like you or Bambietta. So that's how it is. As she spoke, dense spirit particles gathered on Yoruchi's body, and a powerful aura was emitted. With a roar, a pair of huge wings made of spirit particles appeared behind her. I don't know who that woman called Bambietta is, but you want to say that it's the combat style of a beauty, right? Bambietta is indeed a beauty, but the value of a woman is not that face, but that she needs to be dressed up. A bow was drawn out of the wrist of the current Askin. As his voice fell, two bows were shot out. However, in the state of his body, Yoruchi nerve reflex and speed were unbelievably fast. In the rapid movement, she grabbed the bow and arrow shot by the other side, turned her body and threw it to the other side. The bow that was thrown back contained a powerful force, driving back Askin's body. Sorry, although you are a very interesting man, but unfortunately, I have an urgent matter now, so I will go first. The strength of his body suddenly became more violent. Ryuryoku, which was originally like a pair of wings behind him, changed a step further, forming a circle of thunder and lightning behind Yoruchi, and the terrible power spread everywhere. Shunko. Thunder God battle form. Boom. A lightning column suddenly appeared and bombarded on Askin's body. The terrifying lightning drowned his body, and the violent impact hit his body from all directions. Rumble. The power of thunder and lightning spread everywhere, destroying the street where everyone was in a mess. You first heal your injuries, and when you stabilize, then treat Ichigo and Sato, and the Zero Division member who is pretending to be cool over there. Yoruchi cast her eyes on Ichigo and Oetsu Nemea, who were on the other side. It's really useless, Ichigo, actually beaten by the enemy like this. If not for the coordinates left on your body before, causing us to land near you, you would be cold now. And the little brother of Zero Division, your performance is too unsatisfactory. Unexpectedly, you were killed by this level of enemy with Ichigo. It is really incompetent, or is Zero Division only this level? In this way, I can't pretend that I didn't hear it. Although I look very bad, what level is this you said? The smoke dispersed, revealing the figure of Askin. After being completely hit by Yoruchi's big move, Askin's body was full of scars, but even so, his breath did not weaken too much. His vitality was so strong that it was inconceivable. Oh dash! Kurosaki Ichigo struggled to stand up from the ground. In the previous battle, he was not the focus of Askin, so he did not suffer any injuries. He was just temporarily exhausted. After Askin left where he was because of Yoruchi attack, the power of the poisonous pool faded away, and he quickly recovered his basic physical strength. As for Oetsu Nemea, he was the key target of Askin. Even if there was no situation of racial poisoning, now, his injury was still very serious and he did not wake up at all. Have you recovered to the point where you can stand? It's very fast. You heard it. You go first, I will follow you. As long as Yhwach is solved, the war will end. I understand. Miss Uruchi, you have to be careful. Who do you think you are talking to? How can I lose to him? Let them pass. If they interfere with His Majesty will be angry. You don't have to worry about this, because whether it is you or Yhwach, they will be defeated by us. The dead will not be angry. Is it? Just use the move of Thunder God you just used. That is really troublesome. It is impossible for you to use that move to defeat me. As he spoke, the injuries on Askin quickly recovered. The wounds healed quickly, and even the breath of his body gradually stabilized. To be able to injure me like that is indeed a very strong move. However, it is precisely because your move is powerful that it allowed me to absorb enough of your Ryuryoku. Right now, your Ryuryoku is no longer able to kill me. Your wound has actually recovered. This is a matter of course. You should have heard it before, right? I can control the amount of death by taking in a large amount of designated objects. By increasing the amount of death, it shouldn't be strange for my immunity to increase, right? In just a few words, the injuries on Askin had completely recovered. He looked at Uruchi with his hands in his pockets, a faint smile on his face. If you want to make a move, hurry up. If you are too slow, you will be killed. At the same time, inside the Soul King Palace. As the place where the Soul King rested, this was the center of the entire Soul King Palace. Normally, even the 5 members of Zero Division could not enter and leave at will. Many, divine armament, patrolled inside. These were not ordinary lives, but special lives created by the power of the Soul King. They were responsible for taking care of the food and shelter of the Soul King, as well as conveying the orders of the Soul King. Ishida Yuri carefully sneaked here. If it was before, it was impossible for him to lurk here for so long without alarming any god weapon. However, after joining Yhwach's subordinates, Yhwach gave him a powerful force, which he could not imagine before. With this force, he could now move here with ease. As someone with a different intention to join Yhwach, Ishida Yuri is far more aware of Yhwach's horror than others. He is not at his peak, his strength is far more than this, but just this kind of strength has let him completely crush Soul Society, trample the Gotei 13th, and kill Captain Commander Yamamoto. Based on such a fact, Ishida Yuri judged that it is impossible to win this war by relying on Shinigami alone. If he wants to revenge for killing his mother, he can only rely on himself. Although I don't know what the purpose of Yhwach is, there is no doubt that Soul King must be his goal. And now, Yhwach is in battle, and the other members of the Schutzstaffel have their own opponents. As long as you take this opportunity to lay a trap in the place where Soul King is in advance, you can definitely destroy Yhwach completely. So this is the reason why you joined us, Ishida Yuri. A voice suddenly sounded behind Ishida Yuri. Ishida Yuri suddenly tightened his body and suddenly rushed forward. At the same time, he turned around quickly, drawing an arrow and pointing to the person standing in his original position. Hashwolf. When did you dash? The person who spoke was the captain of the Stern Ritter, the support of the Emperor of the Wandenrake, Jugram Hashwolf. When? Are you asking me when I came behind you, or when I found out your evil intentions? His body was shrouded in the shadow. Hashwolfa's face was covered with a layer of shadow. He looked a little gloomy. At this time, he held a long sword in his hand. With a gloomy smile on his face, he looked at the nervous Ishida Yuri not far away. What do you mean? When you first joined our Wandenrake, I knew that you had other thoughts in your heart. But it doesn't matter. I have been watching you all the time. I am looking forward to what kind of interesting expression your face will show when you do your best to prepare everything but are destroyed by me in the end. Now, I see it. When the two spoke, they did not hide anything, so they were discovered by the divine weapon of Soul King at the first moment. Since I have already appreciated the most wonderful part, then let me end this. Hashwolf turned a blind eye to the divine weapons around the two of them. He drew the long sword in his hand and an arc of light slashed out. All the divine weapons close to the two were split in half. Whoosh! Taking advantage of the time when Hashwolf attacked those divine weapons, Ishida Yuri made a decisive move and shot out a divine Saint Destroyer arrow. After joining the Invisible Empire, what he improved was not only strength, but also combat skills. The combat skills that the Invisible Empire had accumulated over 1,000 years made his fighting style much richer. Even though he had just sent out an attack, when faced with Ishida Yuri's attack, Hashwolf's expression did not change. The long sword in his hand was horizontal, easily blocking Ishida Yuri's attack. What a powerless attack! With your strength, it is impossible to cause any harm to me. Hashwolf waved the long sword in his hand, and a sword chi slashed out, directly shooting towards Ishida Yuri. The sharp sword chi wantonly scattered, causing Ishida Yuri's expression to change slightly. You should use the power of the holy text bestowed by His Majesty. I am very curious, what kind of power is it? It is actually the same as His Majesty's, eh? You actually found this place, how troublesome. In front of 12th Division, Kiraku Shunsui looked at the few Quincy who appeared and shook his head slightly with a helpless face. With the help of the platform built by Captain Kuratsuchi, the gift brought by Yushiro Shihuin, and the special power collected by the Visored, many other captain-level Ryuryoku gathered, and finally the door to Soul King Palace was almost completed. As long as they waited for a moment, the door to Soul King Palace could be completed, and the people of Gotei 13th could enter Soul King Palace to stop the enemy. However, just as the plan was about to be completed, it was actually found here by the remnants of the Quincy. Yes, things have become troublesome. Manager Kisuk, please concentrate on building the door, I will find a way to deal with it outside. Good. Then the outside matter will depend on you. Kisuk nodded. At this time, the situation was very urgent. The most important thing at the moment was to seize the time to complete the construction of the door. As for the few Quincy outside, he could only believe in Kiraku. In the surrounding ruins, there was a rustling sound. A moment later, a large group of walking dead Shinigami appeared in Kiraku Shuinsue's sight. No, those were the walking dead. Giselle Gowell, a member of the Star-Crossed Knights, the owner of Skrift, Z, the zombie, whose power can turn the god of death stained with her blood into a zombie. In this chaos, the numerous death gods turned into zombies who only knew how to obey her orders. Oh, what a surprise! Zombie girl, you are still alive. Are the people who can control zombies also zombies? Captain Kuratsuchi looked at the Quincy, and his tone was full of curiosity. These powerful Quincy made his desire to study unprecedented high. Hey, Quincy, if the information I have is not wrong, you seem to have been abandoned by your leader. The light beams just now are called Oswallen. Cut dash. Hearing Kiraku Shuinsue's words, the faces of the Quincy changed slightly. As Kiraku Shunsui said, they are just chess pieces abandoned by Yhwach. In this case, don't mind helping us. How can that kind of thing be possible? No matter what kind of action His Majesty makes, there must be his reason. What we have to do is to follow His Majesty's order and sweep everything for him. Covering his forehead and eyes with a yellow helmet, with a weird hairstyle on his head, Nanana Nejikup raised his hands in a hug, with a frenzied tone. After a slight silence, Kiraku Shunsui put his hands on the knife. Since you have such awareness, it seems that there is only one battle between us. Do you think you still have the ability to fight with us? I have observed all of you for a long time, and used my morphine pattern to paralyze you in turn. Nanana Najikup, the holy text is, you. Its ability is called the underbelly. Ryoryoku, who can analyze the enemy and find the loophole in it, so as to accurately attack the weak point. The longer he observed the enemy, the more thorough his analysis of Ryoryoku would be, and the stronger the effect of the attack. Before this, he had already observed the members of Gotei 13th. Bang! A scorching attack suddenly pierced through his chest, defeating him without any defense. The terrifying heat even penetrated his internal organs, making him completely lose the ability to resist. Bazb, you. What is this situation? Kyoraku Shunsui, who was already prepared for a big battle, looked at the scene in front of him and had a guess in his heart. We will help you. Bazb is behind the other two Quincy, and all three of them have a determined expression on their faces. Why? Do you think we will trust you easily? We don't need your trust. This is just our unilateral desire to help you, but we need some returns. We assist you in building the door to the Soul King Palace, and the return is to take us to the Soul King Palace. We want to find the Yhwach who abandoned us and kill him. I see, then come in. With an expected answer, Kyoraku Shunsui took back Zanpakuto and brought the three Quincy inside, but there was still a little vigilance in his heart. However, with the current lineup of the 13th Division, even if the three Quincy had ulterior motives, they were not afraid. Very good, with the help of three Quincy, our progress should be faster. This guy is a monster. Hikifune Kiryu hid behind the back of a house and calmed his breathing. The Quincy named Gerard was completely a monster. No matter what kind of damage he suffered, he could recover in an instant. What was more terrible was that after recovery, his speed and strength would be stronger than before. The size has become so huge, but it has not become slow and clumsy because of it. This kind of illogical thing is really big. Ha 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 ha. Incompetent. Incompetent. Incompetent, how disappointing. Gerard's wild laughter echoed. But don't cry out. Because no matter how much you cry out, there will be no miracle. But then again, your Zero Division is too vulnerable. Didn't you show a strong performance before? But it is inevitable. In front of my miracle, no matter what kind of power it is too weak. Do you want me to kill you people in the ruins with the body of the Valkyrie? It is as difficult as crushing ants in the desert. But because of this, I can find you. Turn the impossible into possible. This is a miracle. Gerard's huge palm suddenly appeared and slapped down with a terrible wind pressure. Swoosh. Hikifune Kiryu moved to avoid his attack. At the same time, she raised her arm and released a powerful had. Boom. The had directly hit Gerard's face, but only left a slight scar. As the battle unfolded, in the cycle of being wounded and recovered by them again and again, Gerard's body became stronger and stronger. The attack that could cause him great injuries before was no longer of much use now. What a flexible little bug, but if this goes on, it is simply endless. It is better to kill you directly. Use my Hoffnung. A huge long sword appeared in his hand, and Gerard's face showed a cruel smile. In the fierce battle, a door suddenly came out of the Royal Spirit Palace. The wooden door of the round fan was slowly pushed open, and dozens of powerful Ryoryoku came from behind the door. Oh, is this Royal Spirit Palace? From behind the door, it was the captains and vice-captains of Gotei 13th, and the three Quincy. After getting the help of the three Quincy and losing the external threat, Soul Society finally completed the construction of the door. The team captain and the deputy captain stepped into the Soul King Palace for the first time. The concentration of Reisher in the atmosphere is too high. Feeling the extremely rich Reisher in the atmosphere, the captains and the deputy captain sighed. Its sisters Ryoryoku. Yushiro Shihuin suddenly let out a cry of surprise, and didn't say hello to everyone, directly running towards Yoruchi. Yoruchi! After hearing the cry of Yushiro Shihuin, Soifan's face also changed slightly, following the footsteps of Yushiro Shihuin and leaving the place. Really, there is no meaning of group cooperation at all. Sorry, the two of them are really too impatient. However, I think you also feel that the current situation of Miss Yoruchi is a little bad. Kisuke waved his hand and explained, and then his face showed a serious look. Not only the two people, but he also felt that Yoruchi's current situation was quite bad. It seems that the strength of the Quincy who invaded the Soul King Palace is very unusual. Presumably, everyone has felt the current situation of the Soul King Palace. Then, let's spread out and act. If all the members of Zero Division are killed, it is also a more troublesome thing. In battle, of course, directly find the enemy boss. Zaraki Kenpachi's face showed a sneer and looked into the distance. Bang! A huge sword suddenly fell in front of everyone, and the terrible power slammed on the ground, leaving a huge crack, and the wind pressure raised after the chop, also blew away the unprepared people. Ha 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 ha, there are actually some little insects coming to die, but even if you have more people, you can't beat me. With one blow, the formation of the Gotei 13th members was broken, and Gerard's wanton laughter came from above. There is such a big body. Moreover, in such a huge body, there is such a degree of speed. Sure enough, the Quincy brought up by Yhwach and the previous one are completely two levels of other opponents. Looking at the giant in the distance, Chur Hitsugaya said with a cold and calm face. Hearing the words of Hitsugaya, Hinamori Momo suddenly looked at him with surprise. Not only Hinamori Momo, but all the companions around him looked at him with vague eyes. Captain Hitsugaya, who had always been very sensitive to his height, could actually say such words calmly like, is huge. Just as everyone was stunned, Gerard's huge palm suddenly grabbed Daiguren Hyorinmaru. In an instant, he entered the state of relief. With a wave of his hand, he released a layer of ice to freeze Gerard's arm. The eyes of Hitsugaya were cold. Facing such an enemy, there was no chance to be careless. Bang! The frozen arm suddenly exerted force and easily broke free of Chur Hitsugaya's freezing. Gerard had an arrogant smile on his face. This level of thin ice can't freeze me at all. A slash flashed, and quietly, Gerard's forearm was cut off. It's a little interesting. Your Quincy is still quite interesting. In this case, I will kill you first and then go to your boss. Zaraki Kenpachi's Zanpakuto was on his shoulder and showed an excited smile to Gerard in the distance. Such an opponent would be very happy to cut it. Ouch! My right hand. Gerard's mouth made a painful scream. It attracted everyone's attention. My right hand will become stronger. As his voice fell, Raisher flashed. His originally cut arm disappeared, and at the same time, a new arm grew out with black lines engraved on it. How could this be? Seeing this unimaginable scene, the captains all had surprised expressions on their faces. His ability can make the injured parts bigger and stronger. Hikifune Kiryu came from the other side and explained Gerard's ability to the confused Gotei 13th member. Who are you? Seeing the beauty coming, the captains of Gotei 13th asked in their hearts at the same time. All 5 members of Zero Division, when they came to Gotei 13th before, they all saw it, but there was no such beauty in their impression. Miss Kiryu. The voice of Hirako Shinji suddenly sounded. Because the fierce battle consumed Ryuryoku and restored her slim figure, Hikifune Kiryu was recognized at a glance by Hirako Shinji and Hiyori. Ah, it's little Hiyori. I haven't seen you for a long time. You seem to have grown up a lot. Ha 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 ha, it's really interesting. If you are chopped into minced meat, what will you become? It's really exciting. Seeing the enemy recover in an instant, Zaraki Kenpachi's face did not show any horror, but became more excited. Ryuryoku on his body surged violently, and his fighting spirit rose. That fool! After detecting Zaraki Kenpachi's intention, Hitsugaya quickly greeted him and blocked his attack. What do you mean? If I didn't slow down the attack, even you would have been split in half by me. You are more reckless than I imagined, even more reckless. Think about it with your brain. Ah. What do you want to say? If we let this guy continue to grow bigger, if we accidentally let him fall down, what do you think will happen? What consequences can there be? I will follow him down and kill him. If such a heavy guy falls from such a high place, the Siriidii will be completely destroyed. In the face of such a teammate like Zaraki Kenpachi, Hitsugaya only felt a dull pain in his head. In battle, he was indeed a good hand, especially now. He did not know what had happened to him and seemed to have become stronger. However, his way of doing things without asking about the consequences was often a headache. Bang! After the two of them spoke, Gerard's huge foot suddenly fell from the sky and stomped down hard. Ha ha ha! Zaraki Kenpachi raised his hands high, and the terrible power suddenly broke out, lifting Gerard's foot and turning it over to the ground. It's so annoying, that is to say, don't play with him slowly, just cut him to death directly, right? Zaraki Kenpachi stamped his foot, flew up, and the terrible attack was again cut out. Buzz! Zaraki Kenpachi raised his Zanpakuto up high, and the terrible power poured out, but it was blocked by Gerard with the shield. A violent roar came from the shield, and where the two fought, even a terrible wave of air burst out. The shield in his hand blocked Zaraki Kenpachi's slash, and at the same time, he threw Zaraki Kenpachi out. Gerard stood up straight and pulled out his sword. To be able to send me flying, you are very strong. Although I feel that this cruel thing is very boring, but there is no way. A strong dark body like you will become the soul of my Hoffnung. It did not cut off a solid shield, what a solid body. It makes people want to cut it off more. Zaraki Kenpachi's low voice came from the ruins, and the low voice suppressed excitement. It was really an exciting thing to be able to meet such an opponent. Drink. No Zarashi. The terrifying golden Ryuryoku suddenly broke out, and the rich Ryuryoku condensed and formed an aura behind Zaraki Kenpachi. The powerful force was constantly released from his body, and the huge Zanpakuto on his shoulder revealed a rough aura, containing powerful strength. What? How is he liberate his Shirkai? Since when? Looking at Zaraki Kenpachi in the distance, Hitsugaya was slightly stunned. Zaraki Kenpachi has always been an alien among the 13 captains of Gotei 13. As the only captain who can't use Shirkai, he has always relied on the strong Ryuryoku and strong body to fight. Moreover, just relying on this, he has other captain-level combat power. So, after learning Shirkai, what level will his strength reach? Boom! Zaraki Kenpachi faced the body, and the Zanpakuto in his hand and Gerard's sword of hope collided. Ha! Suddenly exerting force, Gerard was forced back half a step, Zaraki Kenpachi stepped a little, and after creating a foothold under his feet, the body once again borrowed strength to fly, and Zanpakuto, who was raised high, fell on Gerard's head. Fool! My Hoffnung can surpass your attack. In the face of Zaraki Kenpachi attack, Gerard's face did not change, and his mouth suddenly said so. As soon as the voice fell, a wound suddenly came out of the waist of Zaraki Kenpachi, and the blood sprayed out, and the original attack of Zaraki Kenpachi was interrupted. What is going on? No attack, no sign, but a huge wound suddenly appeared in the abdomen. This situation is too strange, making Zaraki Kenpachi's heart ring. If it is a head-on battle, he is not afraid of anyone, but in the face of these strange forces, he has no way. Do you have any questions? My strength is, miracle, the so-called, miracle, is to materialize the thoughts of the people. My body cannot be destroyed, because he is driven by the people's, fear. And the, hope, condensed into, Hoffnung, once damaged, it will immediately turn into despair. Although I don't know what he is talking about, but he has extraordinary strength, this is very clear. Hitsugaya's head turned quickly, thinking about countermeasures. Although Zaraki Kenpachi performance was very eye-catching, he could not pin his hopes on him alone. If Zaraki Kenpachi alone, he was afraid that he could not kill this enemy. It is like this. The point is that you can only kill you without losing your sword, right? You make the solution so clear, you are really a simple guy, you will regret it. I told you in order to fill the gap between you and me. Even this is not clear, you are really simple. The one who will regret is you. Boom. The long sword in Gerard's hand suddenly stabbed down. Although the blade was sharp, because of its huge size, it still caused great damage to everything around it. Just like a blunt weapon. Dodging Gerard's attack, Zaraki Kenpachi moved quickly and ran along the surrounding buildings to the place where Gerard was equal. Zanpakuto in his hand waved out, but was avoided by the other side. After avoiding Zaraki Kenpachi's attack, Gerard waved his other hand, and the shield fixed on his arm smashed on Zaraki Kenpachi, sending him flying. Ha ha ha, you actually dodged, contrary to the appearance, your movements are very agile. After being hit, the smile on Zaraki Kenpachi's face became more. If the other side is only huge, with a body of strength but no corresponding speed, it can only be regarded as a fixed target, Root can't let him experience the joy of fighting. I should be the one who is surprised. I originally wanted to pinch you to death at once. Your movements are very agile. Guncho Tsurara, icicle birds. While the two were talking, Hitsugaya's body quietly appeared behind Gerard. Zanpakuto waved and several icicles flew toward Gerard. An eyesore. My opponent is not you. In the face of Hitsugaya's attack, Gerard just casually stretched out his palm. Bang! Gerard's palm had just reached out, and a figure appeared in front of Hitsugaya and blocked his attack. Don't steal my prey. I could say the same to you, don't hinder me, you need to stop him from evolving further. Damn it. This guy. Well, it's useless. Zaraki Kenpachi is the same as the opponent, all unreasonable. I know, but I can't ignore Zaraki Kenpachi. The opponent can't be dealt with by Zaraki Kenpachi alone. You see, Zaraki has already taken off his blindfold. He also instinctively realized that the opponent is a guy who can't be defeated without taking off the blindfold. Boom! Zanpakuto in Zaraki Kenpachi's hand collided with Gerard's giant sword again, making a violent sound. Several wounds came out of Zaraki Kenpachi's body, and blood sprayed. It is simply impossible to kill each other without destroying the enemy's weapon. However, as long as Gerard's weapon is damaged, Zaraki Kenpachi's body will be hurt, and the balance of victory is tilting bit by bit. As time goes on, Zaraki Kenpachi will only have more and more injuries. Standing up from the ground, Zaraki Kenpachi did not say a word, and he was unaware of the injuries on his body, holding his own Zanpakuto to attack forward. Perseverance. This spirit is very amazing. However, the amount of spirit can't fill the gap between us. Bang! An invisible force suddenly took effect on the monk's body, shattering his body. Flesh and blood flew, and he fell to the ground. As I predicted, die within 3 steps of me. Yhwach looked indifferent. In his eyes, there were 2 pupils. After he finally survived the 9 years of retrieving his strength, he finally recovered his strength completely. The power of omniscience and omnipotence. Everything that he had before his eyes was nothing to hide, whether it was the destruction of Zero Division, the resistance of Gotei 13, or the battle of the personal guards, everything was in his eyes. Countless possibilities of the future flashed in front of Yhwach, but under his power, everything pointed to an end. Shinigami was destroyed, and the Quincy was won. And he, Yhwach, would become the master of the new world. Monk. Kyoraku Shunsui rushed here and looked at the monk lying on the ground with complicated eyes. Even the monks of Zero Division also ended up like this. Can they really stop Yhwach with just their members of Gotei 13? But, now is not the time to think about these things. The flowery winds become disturbed, the god of flowers sings, the heavenly winds become disturbed, the devil of heaven sneers, Kaiten Kaikatsu. Pulling out his own Zanpakuto from his waist, Kurosaki Shunsui looked at Yhwach warily. The opposite party can kill Captain Commander Yamamoto and the leader of Zero Division. Kurosaki Shunsui, the new Captain Commander of Gotei 13, do you think you can stop me? Yhwach's eyes fell on Kurosaki Shunsui, and the strange eyes made Kurosaki Shunsui have a bad feeling in his heart, as if everything was seen through. Sorry, we don't intend to fight one-on-one. A group of captain and vice-captain came out behind Kurosaki Shunsui, sure Yukitake held a knife in both hands, and his Zanpakuto has been liberated. Cut. So Zabumaru. Renji instantly burst out the strongest power, coming from the rear of Yhwach. After the guidance of the monk, he finally completed the real solution. At this time, the strength of his solution was several times stronger than before. Not only that, after going through the trip to Soul King Palace, whether it was his Ryuryoku or his body, all of them had grown a lot. At this moment, his combat effectiveness was not inferior to the senior captain. It's useless, all your attacks are useless in front of my eyes. There was no movement from Yhwach, and Zanpakuto in Renji's hand suddenly broke. The relief was destroyed, the strength dissipated, and Renji's body fell weakly, crawling at Yhwach's feet. How can it be? The scene that happened in front of them completely suppressed the people of Gotei 13. There was no movement, and even no fluctuations of Ryuryoku could be felt. Zanpakuto, who was originally intact and was about to cut down, was broken in an instant. Such a thing was completely beyond their cognition. Unfortunately, you came too late. The current me has already opened my almighty eyes. Seemingly seeing through the thoughts of the Gotei 13, Yhwach opened his mouth to explain. I have opened my eyes. From this moment on, until the distant future, I can see through everything. I know everything that I see through, and all the power that I know is ineffective against me. All the preparations you have, the attacks, and the fighting thoughts are all reflected in my eyes. Aya, what a terrifying power. Kurosaki Shunsui held his bamboo hat with one hand, and a rare fighting spirit rose. But, just listen to what you say, don't let us give up. We will only know after the battle. Shunku. Unparalleled explosive flame. Jushiro Shihuin was wrapped in a ball of terrifying Ryuryoku, and his speed soared. In an instant, he appeared in front of Yoruchi, and the terrifying attack poured down on Askin's body without reservation. Sister. Are you okay? After dealing with the enemy, Jushiro Shihuin turned around and ran to Yoruchi with a worried face. There were clearly no injuries on his body, but right now, Yoruchi's body could not move at all. Jushiro, be careful, the enemy is still dash. Aya. It's really violent, little miss. The smoke dispersed, revealing the body of a skin covered with wounds. What a deadly feeling. Are you the one who made my sister like this? Also, I'm a boy. Turning around, he looked at Askin. Jushiro Shihuin had a cold look in his eyes, and his body suddenly disappeared from where he stood. Boom. His fist was wrapped in a terrifying force. Jushiro Shihuin smashed his hammer against Yasi Jin, who had lost the ability to resist. Ryuryoku's entire body poured out without reservation, leaving behind fist imprints on Askin's body. But why was it that as the battle progressed, the injuries that the other party suffered became lighter and lighter? Even the injuries from before were still recovering. Really? Does he have no intention of understanding my ability? What a reckless child. After taking a few hundred punches from Jushiro Shihuin, Askin had already absorbed enough of his Ryuryoku. Now, Jushiro Shihuin's Ryuryoku was no longer able to cause him any harm. With a wave of his arm, a dark mass of air was sent into Jushiro Shihuin's body, causing him to instantly lose the ability to resist. So, this is the price of being reckless. Aya, what a heavy price. Kisuk's voice suddenly sounded. His body had appeared behind Yoruchi at some point. At this time, he was touching Yoruchi's butt with one hand and habitually holding a folding fan to block his chin with the other hand. Kisuk. Another troublesome guy came. Seeing Kisuk, Askin's face changed slightly and his tone was complicated. Oh, you know me. It is an honor. It has nothing to do with whether I know it or not. I don't know much about you. However, you are one of the special forces that His Majesty has especially emphasized. Askin looked at Kisuk and became serious. After all, this was one of the 5 special combat forces. The 5 special combat forces were determined according to, unknown. Kurosaki Ichigo was potential ability, Zaraki Kenpachi was combat power, Hisubichib was intelligence, Aizen Susuk was Ryuryoku, and Kisuk Urahara was the means. No matter what strategy he used, he could play the trick and crack it one by one. A clean and efficient strategy. In the face of such an enemy, if he was careless, he would lose. Shunk, Rage Senkei, Shunri Kakabi Senki. Under Kisuk's interference, Yoruchi instantly completed another transformation. Her whole person seemed to have turned into a wild beast, emitting a wild aura. Moreover, after the transformation, although the time of completion of the move was too short, and she could not control her own consciousness and communicate normally, in contrast, the quality of all sides had greatly improved. Most importantly, under this state, Yoruchi Ryuryoku would have 48 changes in every second. This kind of change frequency completely exceeded the upper limit of Askin's ability, who was completely immune to Yoruchi attacks. Rumble. Along with a thunderous roar, the body of Askin was once again ruthlessly smashed into the ground by Yoruchi. There is not much time difference. The immune potion is about to lose its effect. Thank you, Miss Yoruchi. After the battle ended, Yoruchi's body trembled slightly. After the effect of Kisuk potion ended, Yoruchi was once again drowned in pain. Her body almost completely lost the ability to resist. She could only collapse on the ground and slowly eliminate the toxins in her body. Next, you can slowly extract the poison. I will look for his corpse and see if I need to give him a fatal blow. As soon as he finished speaking, a huge sphere suddenly appeared. Before Kisuk could react, it wrapped around him. A heavy feeling suddenly appeared on Kisuk's body, making him almost unable to stand straight. What is this? Gift Ball Deluxe. This is the biggest poison ball I can make. Askin's voice came, and the whole person was emitting a faint light. Oh, do you care about not that, but my appearance? This is called, Hashein, God's Poison Taster. There is a pair of strange, similar wings behind a skin, and there are many sphere-like things on the body, without a doubt, that is the Volstandig of Quincy. Your performance just now is really good. Ryuryoku changes 48 times in a second, making my immunity speed unable to keep up, which has caused me a lot of trouble. However, in the state of Volstandig, I can withstand the attack in 1 second and complete all 48 kinds of transformation. The rest is to analyze and get immunity for a certain time. As Askin spoke, he exuded a strong self-confidence. No matter how many schemes Kisuk had, it was useless. After he entered the Volstandig, he was almost in an invincible position. No matter how many tricks Kisuk had, he could not cause fatal damage to him. On the contrary, as long as he was in his Gift Ball Deluxe, Kisuk would constantly be weakened. Under this, Kisuk would only face death. Of course, maybe you have other ways to make Ryuryoku of Shihoin Yoruchi change even more, but that is useless. In order to not let you waste time, out of goodwill, I will directly tell you the ability of my complete holy body. My Volstandig can adapt to the qualitative change of toxins. No matter what kind of change the performance of toxins is, as long as the foundation is the same, it can make the immunity change and achieve the immunization in an instant. It sounds very long-winded, but your words should have understood what I mean. In other words, no matter what kind of change you let her undergo in the future, it can't hurt me at all. Then, what do you want to do? Kisuk. You shouldn't be desperate yet, right? As he spoke, Askin stretched out his arm, and balls appeared on the inner wall of this big ball one by one, followed by spirit particles, and the poison concentration in the entire space rapidly soared. Don't be so surprised. This is just in case. The deadly poison domain has been completed. It is absolutely impossible to escape from this poisonous domain. Do you really not want us to escape? Of course. What kind of joke are you talking about? We are enemies. Not at all. Although it might be a little inappropriate for me to say this, I can't tell that you are acting out of loyalty. Your words are too rude. My loyalty and sincerity are not low. But what you said is not completely wrong. This is indeed not the entire reason for my actions. I am just very interested in His Majesty. A dangerous expression appeared on Askin's face. Human world, Hueco Mundo, Soul Society. After destroying these three worlds, what would he create? There would be no one who could do such a thing except His Majesty. If he missed His Majesty now, do you think he could find such a person? Kisuk, you are also a knowledgeable person. You also have the mind to look through the entire world. Don't you think so? What would His Majesty create after destroying these three worlds? Don't you want to take a look? Before Askin could finish his words, Kisuk suddenly moved and appeared in front of Askin in an instant. Zanpakuto in his hand had been released at some point, brushing against Askin's cheek. To be able to move so fast in this poisonous field, what a monster. Askin praised and easily avoided Kisuk's attack. After entering the Volstandig, not only did he improve the ability of the poison square, but he also improved in all aspects. However, this level of attack could not defeat him. I am not interested. Is this your answer? It is really a pity. If it was the Captain Kuratsuchi, maybe he would say that he wanted to see new things, but even he would not necessarily be interested in what Yhwach created. He preferred to use his own hands to create things that no one had seen before. That is scientist. I see. I don't hate this answer, but even so, I still want to see the world His Majesty wants to create. Askin raised one hand, and a huge ring appeared on his wrist. With the injection of Raisher, it instantly enlarged and then suddenly threw it out. In the face of Askin's attack, Kisuk was fully focused. This enemy was a tricky existence in the battles he had fought so far. Under the light of Kisuk's eyes, the huge ring suddenly became smaller and disappeared from his sight. Disappeared? Kisuk felt a chill in his heart. In the next moment, a small ring appeared on his eyeball. With a burst of power, Kisuk's eyeball instantly ruptured and blood sprayed out. The toxic ring is a very powerful move. It is generally only used on guys whose lethal dose doesn't work. As far as the effect is concerned, its ability is to focus on one point, accurately pierce a certain part of the enemy, and make them die instantly. It's all your fault for being too strong. It won't work even if I reduce the amount of death. All the methods you have are useless to you. I can only destroy your internal organs and let you die. There's no other way. Kisuk let out a long breath to ease his condition. The corners of his mouth moved slightly. Bankai. Bankai, Kananbaraki Beneheim Eritame. As soon as Kisuk finished speaking, a huge woman with classical long hair, sleeveless clothes, and puppet-like limbs appeared behind him. Bankai? I have never heard of it. There is no information about you from the information that His Majesty obtained. In the face of Kisuk's Bankai, Askin was only a little surprised, but he was not very panicked. They had seen enough of Shinigami's Bankai, but not many could really pose a threat to them. Moreover, Kisuk was now in the poison domain, and his body was seriously injured. In this situation, even if he did, it could not change the situation he was in. To use it in front of people who are still alive, this is the first time. So that's how it is. Askin became slightly serious. To be able to be said by Kisuk like this, it seemed that his solution really had extraordinary power. Then, let me ask first, what is your Bankai's ability? You can ask such a question. I can't tell you. It's natural that you don't say it. But if you attack without asking, I feel uncertain. There's no need to explain, but even if I don't say it, you will immediately know. Just as Kisuk finished speaking, Askin was horrified to see that his arm seemed to have been torn apart. There were even a few threads sewn on his arm. The strange scene made his heart tremble. His body quickly retreated. The arm that seemed to have been cut open returned to its original state, but Askin still felt a chill rise from the bottom of his heart, and a drop of cold sweat unconsciously appeared on his forehead. You are very calm. Most people will cut off their arms due to shock. Ha ha ha, I don't have the courage to cut off my own arm. Askin echoed, but his heart was full of doubts. What was the ability of the other party? What did the other party do just now? Through that attack just now, you probably understand that the ability of Kanambaraki Beneheim Eritame is to restructure everything that touches it. Along with Kisuk's voice, the two palms that had been covering his face were removed, revealing his face that had been mended. Several threads were still on Kisuk's face, and the eyes that had been destroyed by Askin's attack had healed. Just as Askin was surprised, Kisuk's body suddenly disappeared and passed by Askin. Blood sprayed from Askin's shoulder. Because he was still surprised by the change in Kisuk's body, Askin was completely unable to dodge Kisuk's attack. After the successful attack, Kisuk turned around and stabbed again. Dang! A weapon made of rapier appeared in his hand and blocked Kisuk's attack. Askin's face was full of shock. You can still see things. Your eyes should be dead by now. I can see. Because my eyes have been restructured. Kisuk stretched out his other hand and completed the transformation. Holding the knife with both hands, Kisuk suddenly exerted force, and a terrible chop burst out, sending Askin flying. His body was sent flying, and he knocked down a row of buildings along the way. Askin stopped his body, and there was a bit of distress on his face. I don't like it like this. Isn't this a competition of brute force? I finally pulled you into my domain. I originally wanted to go all out according to my own style, but I couldn't do it. However, no matter how powerful you are still a bit lacking. You shouldn't have forgotten, right? This poison domain is a poison fortress that absolutely impenetrable. Here, you can't even breathe. But I haven't used my full strength yet. Are you planning to increase the concentration of the poison balls? Even now, it is already my limit to stand on the ground and not fall. You really know how to speak. Facing Kisuk who was close to him, Askin retreated again and again. Just as he said, in this extremely poisonous ball, even breathing was a difficult thing, let alone killing him. Although Kisuk's solution was indeed very strange, this was his home ground after all. As long as this continued, Kisuk would definitely be the first to be unable to persist. This kind of battle was a battle that suited his style. I understand. As long as your solution doesn't fall on the ground, it will be very dangerous. Amazing, you understand so quickly. However, it is already too late. Boom. At some point in time, a fist had been pressed against the back of Askin's chest. A terrifying force followed the other's fist and instantly poured into Askin's body. The violent Ryuryoku instantly minced his internal organs into pieces, and then suddenly exploded, leaving a huge hole in Askin's chest. What? Even though he was injured like this, Askin still did not die immediately. His terrifying survival ability allowed him to maintain a trace of consciousness in such a situation. During the battle, you have always emphasized that this poison domain is absolutely impossible to escape, but you did not say that it is impossible to invade from outside, so I tried to create a path from the periphery of the poison domain. On the ground, a winding path extended out. It was only until outside this extremely poisonous ball that Kisuke created it when he was fighting against Askin and testing each other. It was precisely because of this that he had the chance to kill the other party. Of course, this also did not lack the help of others. Many thanks, Kensei-san. The one who gave Askin a fatal blow was surprisingly Maguruma Kensei. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, not only did he unleash his Bankai, he even put on his mask and unleashed his strongest power. And his cautiousness was not in vain. In an instant, he completely defeated Askin, leaving a huge hole in his chest, completely destroying his internal organs. However, even with this kind of injury, Askin still did not die. What a tenacious vitality, this guy. Looking at the still alive Askin beside his feet, Kensei frowned slightly. He didn't have any ill feelings about sneak attacks. This was a war, not a time to pay attention to it. However, this guy in front of him could still hold on for such a long time after suffering such injuries. He was a monster. Buzz. A huge sense of oppression suddenly appeared on Kensei. Not only him, but Kisuke also felt that heavy feeling at the same time, as if it was going to crush his body. What's going on? Oh, there's something I forgot to tell you. This guy was actually not dead. Hearing Askin's voice, Kensei's pupils suddenly contracted. Under such an injury, he could still speak. Even a monster would not be able to do this. Once I die, the power of the gift ball deluxe will increase greatly. Because I am afraid that I will be sucked into it, I subconsciously sealed the power of the gift ball deluxe. But now that the seal has been opened, although I have not expressed my respect to you, you are truly admirable. Now you should have no strength to escape. As Askin spoke, blood continuously spurted out from his mouth, and the aura of life on his body became weaker and weaker. This kind of injury was no longer something that could be immune to just by controlling the death dealing. He could finally feel a fatal feeling. However, even if that's the case, you must have a way to deal with it, right? Before he finished speaking, the aura of Askin's life completely disappeared. At the same time he died, the concentration of poison in the gift ball deluxe suddenly increased. Cough. He coughed out a ball of blood. Kisuke's body could no longer support himself and fell to the ground. The solution behind him also fell at the same time he fell to the ground. I can only do this. I'm sorry, but I'll leave the rest to you. Damn it, there are 3 people here. It's a bit difficult for me to do it alone. Looking at the unconscious Kisuke and the 2 siblings from the Shihuan clan not far away, Kensei frowned slightly. With his ability, it was already very good for him to take 1 person away while resisting the poisonous gas here. At most, he could only take 2. It was almost impossible to take 3 people at the same time. Kensei is a big idiot. Kisuke has already considered this outcome. Kuna Mashiro suddenly appeared next to Kensei. After he habitually ridiculed Kensei, he instantly stepped out next to the brother and sister of the Shihuan clan and picked them up one by one. Hurry up and take Kisuke away. The poisonous gas here is so smelly, the white clothes are about to be dirty. Without having time to bicker with Kuna Mashiro, Kensei mentioned Kisuke and the 2 of them followed the passage created by Kisuke and successfully left the poison domain. It seems that everyone from Gotei 13 has finally arrived. Muyang sat on the ground, feeling the outbreak of people from Gotei 13 everywhere in Royal Spirit Palace, and his heart was slightly relieved. Although it was almost impossible to kill all the members of Schutzstaffel by relying on the captains and vice-captains of Gotei 13, it was still possible to hold them back. Most importantly, there were people on Yhwach's side who had gone to control him. Muyang stood up. After a period of rest, he had almost completely recovered. After all, he had not been injured in the first place, and all he had consumed was Ryuryoku and his energy. You are still like this. When I am not around you, I like to mess around. Captain Kimura. A gentle voice suddenly sounded beside Muyang. Kusu. Suzuki Kusu had a smile on her face as she gently sat next to Muyang. She carefully rested his head on Muyang's shoulder and closed her eyes, revealing an extremely satisfied expression. This battle is too dangerous. You shouldn't have followed us. Muyang said softly. An extremely comfortable feeling came from his heart, making his tense nerves relax because of the successive battles. Don't even think about abandoning me. Ever since I started following you, I have been tied to you. Suzuki Kusu's tone was still gentle, but there was a hint of firmness in it. When I woke up, I couldn't find you. Even after searching the entire Soul Society, I still couldn't find you. I only found a few traces of Ryuryoku left behind by you on Rukongai. Later, the Quincy invaded again. When I felt you again, Ryuryoku, do you know how happy I was? Hearing Suzuki Kusu's whisper, Muyang felt a strong sense of guilt in his heart. He crossed time and space for unknown reasons and returned to 1,000 years ago. After coming back again, several days had passed, and when he just came back, there was the invasion of the Quincy, and he also witnessed Yhwach breaking into the Soul King Palace. Because he was too worried about the development of things, he ignored Suzuki Kusu's feelings and directly took Kurosaki Ichigo to catch up. I'm sorry, Don't say sorry. You know that's not what I want to hear. Suzuki Kusu raised her head slightly and stared at Muyang. Ah, I know. I won't abandon you in the future. Muyang stood up, his eyes full of determination. His body, which had become tired because of the continuous fierce battles, became tired because of the successive things. At this moment, it seemed to have all recovered. He could clearly feel that a force was burning in his body. Let's go and stop Yhwach. This world with you cannot let him trample on it recklessly. Pulling Suzuki Kusu, Muyang moved his feet and advanced in the direction of the Soul King. Didn't you say you were going to stop Yhwach? Why did you run to the resting place of the Soul King? Our goal is to stop Yhwach. Since we want to stop him, we must know where his goal is. For Suzuki Kusu's question, Muyang apparently thought for a long time. There is no doubt that Yhwach's goal is Soul King. Although I don't know what he wants to do to Soul King, this is absolutely not wrong. In other words, as long as we can stop him from approaching Soul King, then our goal is completed. From this matter, it can be seen that Yhwach has done so many things, just to be able to invade Soul King Palace. It can be known that he has no way to enter Soul King Palace under normal circumstances. The same is true for Aizen, they can't enter Soul King Palace. We just have to hide where Soul King is. Then repel Yhwach, and the dozens of barriers between Soul King Palace and Soul King Palace will form again before Yhwach is expelled from Soul King Palace, which is a success. As for how to completely kill Yhwach later, it can be discussed from a long time. The most important thing now is to protect Soul King. The Soul King is the wedge of this world, maintaining the balance of this world, absolutely cannot be lost. A good plan, but unfortunately, I am already here. A voice suddenly came from the Soul King Palace in front of Muyang. Hashwalth walked out with light steps, the long sword in his hand stained with a few traces of blood, as if he had gone through a battle. It's Ishida Yuri. There seemed to be a strange power in this Soul King Palace, which blocked Muyang's perception of Ryuryoku inside. However, this kind of power had no effect on Suzuki Kusu. After all, her power was good at perception. After Hashwalth appeared, her perception extended out. Inside the Soul King Palace, Ryuryoku, who found Ishida Yuri. Sorry for the trouble. Looking at the person in front of him, Muyang frowned slightly. Although they had not fought face to face before, Muyang still knew the information of the person in front of him. Hashwalth, the right hand of the Wandenreika's emperor, the captain of the Stern Ritter, the most important subordinate of Yhwach. His strength is unknown, the only thing he knows is that he is definitely not weak. At least, above the members of the Schutzstaffel. So you are here. I finally found you. A voice suddenly came from the side of Muyang. The person was wearing the uniform of the Quincy, with a purple vertical head, and the whole person exuded a sense of arrogance. At this time, he was looking at Hashwalth with a complicated look. Do you really care about that guy? Ishida Yuri? Bazb. What do you think you're doing? Hashwalth turned his eyes to Bazb, and there was a flash of fluctuation in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed it. Before asking me what I'm trying to do, shouldn't you ask you are still alive? Isn't it? Bazb shouted angrily. He did not give Hashwalth a chance to speak. He directly rushed up and raised a finger at the same time. The terrible temperature was brewing at his fingertips. Burning Finger 1. He grabbed Hashwalth's collar with one hand, and the flame in his other hand was ready to shoot out at any time. Grabbing Bazb's wrist, Hashwalth turned over and took off his cloak to get away. He took advantage of the opportunity to block Bazb's sight, and the hilt of the knife in his hand was ruthlessly struck and hit Bazb's face, forcing him back. However, taking advantage of the battle, Hashwalth also saw the injury on Bazb's body. After repelling Bazb, Hashwalth did not take the opportunity to attack, but stopped his movements, and there was a trace of waves in his eyes. That injury was not caused by the enemy, but because of His Majesty's, Oswallen. Are you not chosen? What kind of crap are you talking about? You are the only one chosen. Everyone below is affected by the Oswallen. Everyone was killed. The people who escaped the light were also robbed of the strength of their Volstandig. The people who could not escape were all killed by it. Thinking of those Quincy companions who died under the Oswallen, Bazb's heart burned with anger. So, are you sympathizing with them? Sympathy? Don't joke. Sympathy for those guys, how is that possible? From the beginning, the purpose of joining Yhwach's subordinates was to kill him. How could he have sympathy for Yhwach's subordinates? Even if many of them are companions who have known each other for thousands of years. What really made me angry was your attitude on this matter. You know about this matter, right? What's the point of asking this question? Would you believe me if I said I didn't know? I believe it. Because we are companions. Isn't it? You go. Bazb. Hashwalth lowered his eyes, his long eyelashes blocked his eyes, and the emotions in his heart were also blocked. Just call me, Baz, just like before. The corner of Bazb's mouth pulled out a smile, as if thinking of the life of childhood. At that time, they were the closest partners, fighting together for the same goal, which was the happiest time of his life. Unfortunately, he was long gone. Burning Finger 3. Flames burned on his fingertips, and Bazb charged at Hashwalth with an indomitable momentum. It seems that there are many stories between them. Looking at the two Quincy who were fighting over there, Suzuki Kusu said. Even in such a tense battlefield, the sensitivity of women still made her aware of the bond between Bazb and Hashwalth. This is just convenient for my action. Muyang just glanced at it and withdrew his sight. Compared with the resentment and hatred between the two Quincy, he was more concerned about whether the next action could be successful. Although he had thought about it many times in his heart, it was another matter to actually operate it. Who? Taking a long breath, Zanpakuto, which was at Muyang's waist, was unsheathed. The knife light flashed, and a crack appeared on the building in the Soul King Palace. The interior of the Soul King was a building similar to a tower. However, this tower was suspended in mid-air. The location of the Soul King was at the top of this building. Previously, Ishida Yuri was only at the bottom of this building. Now, Hashwalth and Bazb were fighting on the same floor. What Muyang needed to do now was to cut this building apart, separate the location of the Soul King from the others, and then hide. Basbi, now is not the time to fight. On the other side, after sensing Muyang's movements, Hashwalth waved his long sword and forced Basbi back. A trace of emotion flashed on his face. Although he did not know what Muyang wanted to do, if he allowed him to continue, it would definitely affect His Majesty's actions. Are you still going to escape the battle? You go. Stop, Basbi. Our battle is meaningless. No matter who wins or loses, it will be of no benefit to His Majesty. Nothing good for His Majesty? Of course, because my purpose here is to kill His Majesty. Burning Finger. 4. More terrible flames spread from Basbi's fingertips. He did not care about what Hashwalth said. Even the goal of killing Yhwach was nothing at this moment. The thing he wanted to do most now was to defeat Hashwalth. Won't you offend the Soul King with your current appearance? Suzuki Kusu's mouth opened slightly, and her face carried a bit of shock as she looked at the building in front of him that had been slashed into two by Muyang. This was the residence of the Soul King in the Soul King Palace. Was there really no problem with such a rash attack? Offended the Soul King? Thinking of the fragments he saw when he crossed the long river of time and space, a strange expression appeared on Muyang's face. If the Soul King still had an independent consciousness, he would definitely not do such a thing. No, if the Soul King still had an independent consciousness, it would never have been his turn to do such a thing, and now all of this would not have happened. However, the reality was that the current Soul King had completely lost his self-consciousness. He was only acting as a wedge to maintain the operation of the world. Returning Zanpakuto to his waist, Muyang put his hands together. A mysterious power emitted from his body, and layers of barriers that emitted light silver light appeared in the void. They were combined in a strange way, wrapping the upper half of the building in front of him in layers. Mirror barrier. The barrier formed, hiding the half of the building where the Soul King was in the depths of time and space, and formed an identical building in the same place, even perfectly combining with the lower half that had been cut off. Everything in front of him suddenly shattered like glass, and everything turned into pieces that fell off. Woo dash. Muyang suddenly let out a muffled groan. A trace of blood slid down the corner of his mouth. What's wrong? Seeing Muyang's abnormal reaction, Suzuki Kusu looked nervous. Failed. I underestimated the power of the Soul King. Muyang wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and a trace of helplessness flashed in his eyes. The Soul King was after all a Soul King. Even if he had lost his self-consciousness, as an existence that could maintain the operation of the entire world, the power of the Soul King was unquestionable. He was the origin of the world, the starting point of everything, and also the end of everything. Muyang wanted to rely on his own strength to hide the existence of the Soul King from this space and time. This was undoubtedly the cornerstone of the entire world. This was a confrontation with the entire world, and the difficulty was self-evident. Then what should we do? I don't know. However, before I find a new way, I think I need to get close to the Soul King. Get close to the Soul King. Hearing Muyang's words, Suzuki Kusu was shocked again. As a Shinigami, she had always been in awe of the Soul King. The Soul King controlled this world and maintained the existence of the entire world. Protecting the world and guarding the Soul King was Shinigami's duty. And now, she wanted to come into contact with the Soul King at close range. Even though she already possessed powerful strength and had seen a lot of things, Suzuki Kusu still had some apprehension in her heart. An indescribable emotion filled her heart. The Dark Hall. The place where the Soul King was located was a dark hall. In the dark hall, a few pure white curtains hung down. Through the curtain, one could see an amber-like thing hanging. In the amber-like thing, there was a figure. The figure had a pair of strange eyes. There were no pupils, no whites, and those eyes were unprecedented. But looking at those eyes, it was like facing the entire world. This is a Soul King. Looking at the appearance of the young man in front of her, Suzuki Kusu said in a low voice. There was a trace of surprise and faint panic in her tone. Why does the appearance of the Soul King look like he is being tortured? The existence in front of her, the Soul King, had lost her arms. Even her legs were only half broken. Not only that, there was not the slightest bit of vitality from his body. Muyang did not reply to Suzuki Kusu's words. When he entered this place, the moment she saw the Soul King, a strange feeling rose from her heart. As if his body was out of control, Kimura Muyang walked towards the Soul King step by step. Every step he took, the more intense the palpitation in Muyang's heart became. The eyes of the Soul King clearly did not feel any vitality, but it seemed to contain a great power, attracting Muyang to approach him bit by bit. Towards Muyang's strange behavior, it was as if Suzuki Kusu did not notice it. She still stood in place, staring at the Soul King in a daze. What is going on? His body involuntarily approached the Soul King, but Muyang's thoughts were not affected. It was a very wonderful experience. He clearly knew his own situation. In his heart, he also understood that it was very unwise to rashly approach the Soul King. Moreover, his body was not controlled by any power to forcefully move forward. However, his body was still moving forward. It was just like instinct. As Muyang advanced, scenes flashed in front of his eyes, as if they were the scene of him shuttling through time and space. From the past to the present, he was also like this. Looking at soul societies close to 1,000 years of history, it condensed into many images that flashed past his eyes. However, the current situation was somewhat different from that time. He did not travel through time and space, only walking here. However, every step towards the Soul King seemed to be experiencing the changes of soul society. The power of the Soul King was affecting the spacetime around him. With this kind of enlightenment flashing through his heart, Muyang had already walked to the front of the Soul King. At this distance, Muyang could finally feel a trace of the Soul King's aura. It was a kind of large aura that contained everything, nurtured everything, and supported everything. With Muyang's height, standing in front of the Soul King, his eyes just happened to meet the Soul King's eyes. At this moment, the Soul King's eyes suddenly moved. It was a very subtle movement, but it made the hair on Muyang's entire body stand up. Whether it was the situation he understood or the situation he saw through the fragments of time, the Soul King was an existence that completely lost its self-consciousness and only acted as a wedge that maintained the world. However, such an existence, his eyes actually moved. Just as this thought flashed through Muyang's mind, a vast power suddenly surged into his body from his eyes. There were also many scenes that entered Muyang's body along with the power. He saw the ground breaking of the first grass in the Soul Society, the blooming of the first flower, and the emergence of the first river. And the appearance of the first soul. More and more souls entered Soul Society, and finally, the first person who possessed spiritual power appeared. More and more people with spiritual power appeared, and those who possessed spiritual power were collectively called Shinigami. After the title of Shinigami began to spread, Shinigami's fighting style gradually became richer. Some created Kido according to the arrangement of Reisher, some created Shuanpa according to the flow of Reisher, some created Bakudo according to the explosive power of Reisher and the powerful body of the spiritual body. Then, the first Zanpakudo appeared. Since then, the 4 combat systems of Shinigami, Zankinsoki have been officially formed. As the combat system was perfected, Soul Society also had more and more wars. The stronger the strength, the greater the ambition, the power formed one by one, and various wars broke out frequently, until one person appeared. Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni. Holding the strongest flame ability of Soul Society, his Zanpakudo completely ended Soul Society's war. He established an organization like the Gotei 13th and led Shinigami to live in the center of Soul Society. Then, he saw Yhwach. He saw Yhwach establish the Wandenreich in the modern world, united all the forces of the Quincy, and then led the Quincy and Shinigami to start a war, and the war ended with the failure of the Quincy. Shinigami paid a heavy price to win the war, while the Quincy was defeated and fled. The leader, Yhwach, fell into a deep sleep. The remaining people were hidden in the shadow of the Siriidii, constructing the Wandenrake. After lurking for 1,000 years, finally, after Yhwach awakened, and the recovery rate of the temple was set off again. He saw Captain Commander Yamamoto killed, the Siriidii was invaded, trampled, and destroyed. Kurosaki Ichigo was summoned to the Soul King Palace, leaving an empty space when he left, and Yhwach took the opportunity to invade the Soul King Palace. Zero Division was suppressed by Yhwach's Schutzstaffel, protecting Division 13 to support the Soul King Palace, and also suppressed. He saw a familiar figure fighting hard with Yhwach's personal guards. He also saw his close companions stopping Yhwach with their lives. Then, he saw himself. He saw himself walking into the place where the Soul King rested. He saw himself walking step by step to the front of the Soul King. He even saw the figure of the Soul King reflected in his pupils. The scene stopped here. This is. Changing his perspective, Muyang suddenly came back to his senses. A strange feeling arose in his heart. Before he had time to carefully experience that strange feeling, Muyang first felt the changes in his body. The state of his body was unprecedentedly good. His whole body was full of strength, and his physical fitness had almost undergone earth-shaking changes. What changed was not only his body, but also Ryuryoku. Muyang could clearly feel that his current Ryuryoku was fundamentally different from before. This was the difference between dimensions. Not only compared to the previous him, but even compared to the people of Zero Division, Muyang now had a dimensional suppression on them. However, compared to this, looking at the Soul King in front of him, Muyang was overwhelmed with emotions. Everything he saw just now was displayed in a detached perspective. It was not the perspective of a bystander, nor the perspective of a participant. Instead, it was like a gaze from a god. Especially when he saw himself in the end, that feeling was as if he was the Soul King himself. Before we end this story, I'd like to make a special shout out to my loyal subscriber at RB Super AR 2742. Now to continue. It's useless. Whether it's Shinigami, Hollow, or Quincy, with your strength, you can't touch me. Yhwach stood up, and in front of him, a large number of people fell. Kyoraku Shunsui, Shiryukatake, Hirako Shinji, and Gotei 13's captains are all lying in a pool of blood at this time, their life and death unknown. Stark and Grimjow, who came with them to Soul King Palace, also fell there at this time. In addition, there were Quincy, Giselle Gawel and Lotado Lampard, who came with Basby to seek revenge against their own king. In the previous period of time, all the people have used their cards, broke out their strength without reservation, besieged Yhwach, and then everything is in vain. Then, what is your choice, Ichigo? Kurosaki Ichigo clenched his fists, and his eyes swept over the fallen people on the ground, and his eyes became colder and colder. Ryuryoku overflowed, and the overflowing Ryuryoku even showed a state visible to the naked eye. It seems that you have become a lot stronger. No, it should be said that this is your original strength. It seems that you have made a choice. Come on, I am looking forward to your performance. The appearance of the companions on the ground had long stung Kurosaki Ichigo. After Yhwach finished speaking, he directly pulled out the Getsuga on his back. The terrible Ryuryoku burst out, and a huge slash followed his roar. Getsuga Tensho. Yhwach's body did not move, and a black shadow suddenly popped out from his feet, forming a barrier in front of him, blocking Kurosaki Ichigo's slash. Not only that, but after blocking Kurosaki Ichigo's Getsuga Tensho, the black shadows in front of Yhwach suddenly rushed out and attacked Kurosaki Ichigo. Yhwach's counterattack was too fast. Before Kurosaki Ichigo could react, his attack had already arrived in front of him. At this moment, a triangular yellow barrier appeared in front of Kurosaki Ichigo and blocked Yhwach's attack. It was Orihime Inoue. At the same time as using the Sten Kishun to treat everyone, she also used Santen Keshin forming at the critical moment to protect Kurosaki Ichigo from Yhwach's attack. In this period of time since the end of Aizen incident, she has grown a lot. Looking at the blocked attack in front of her, Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes flashed a trace of fluctuation, then he stamped his foot and rushed out again. This person in front of him not only messed up Soul Society, but also intended to destroy the whole world. The most important thing was that his mother's death was completely because of this guy in front of him. In any case, he must kill him. An unexpected surprise attack. Why did you bring that girl here? Did hatred make you lost? As if he did not hear Yhwach's words, Kurosaki Ichigo was repelled again and again, knocked down again and again, stood up again and again, rushed up without a pause, without a trace of hesitation. I don't understand why you are in a hurry to die. In the face of Kurosaki Ichigo's brainless attack, Yhwach's tone has a faint sneer. There is no chance of winning, but launched attacks again and again. Obviously, he brought a companion who is good at healing, but he turned a blind eye. Such a battle made him a little bored. Are you reluctant to show me your strength? Or are you worried that I will take away your strength if you show me? But is it really good to go on like this, Ichigo? If you die like this, the human world and soul society will end, and I will end all this. As he spoke, Yhwach's attack did not relax at all, and the black shadow seemed to have life, forcing Kurosaki Ichigo to be in danger. After being forced back by Yhwach's attack again, Kurosaki Ichigo's body suddenly paused. He did not rush forward again, but turned his head and shouted at Orihime. A huge crystal wall appeared in front of Kurosaki Ichigo now, blocking Yhwach's attack for him. Thank you, Inoue. Kurosaki Ichigo gasped and said. The successive attacks made his face full of sweat. However, there was a little joy on his face. As long as you inject the Quincy Ryuryoku into your Zanpakuto, you will wake up a new form of power. While speaking, the white lines on Kurosaki Ichigo's Zanpakuto became more and more obvious, and the whole blade turned into a pure white color. Boom! The terrifying Ryuryoku suddenly exploded. The violent fluctuation of Ryuryoku even formed a huge vortex in the sky above Kurosaki Ichigo. It was the spiritual chi vortex formed by the surge of Reisher. So that's how it is. Is this your goal? No matter how you look at it, it seems to be hollow. Is this hollow form formed after your power merged? That's right. There was a curved horn on Kurosaki Ichigo's head, and there were black lines on his face. Even one of his eyes became hollow. Uncle Zangetsu, who inherited the power of Quincy from my mother, and the hollow formed by the fusion of the power of Shinigami from my father, the two people who can stand against each other and maintain a balance at the same time. As Zangetsu, these two knives are recreated. It seems that if you maintain a balance, you can be safe, but if you break the balance, one will run out. In fact, until now, whenever I devour a lot of the power of Shinigami in the power of Hollow, this guy will come out. In fact, since my power has merged, I can freely change, but because I can't fully use it, I use your power. Kurosaki Ichigo had a confident smile on his face and faced Yhwach not far away. Inoue, expand the defense range, use Shun Shun Rika to defend my Ryuryoku, and heal them at the same time. Kurosaki Ichigo lifted his foot, and Orihime did not even see his movements clearly. Kurosaki Ichigo had already appeared in front of her defense. Ryuryoku on Kurosaki Ichigo's body emitted, and before he began to fight, he released a terrible power, rising and falling, the sky and the earth changing color. What a great power, as you wish, I will pull out my sword and be your opponent. In the face of Kurosaki Ichigo with such strength, Yhwach finally pulled out his sword. Boom! The two weapons collided and burst out a terrible force. Do you think you can defeat me with this little strength? Yhwach grabbed Zanpakuto with one hand, and the weapon in the other hand was suddenly waved out, but it was blocked by Kurosaki Ichigo's other sword. The power in his hand suddenly broke out, and with Kurosaki Ichigo's half-baked double-edged sword, he could not resist Yhwach's slash at all, and the whole person was sent flying into the middle of the air. In the middle of the air, Zanpakuto in Kurosaki Ichigo's hand raised, and the blade flashed with a light, and the whole body of Ryuryoku gathered to his Zanpakuto. Getsuga Tensho. It's useless, this kind of little trick. Yhwach suddenly stopped halfway, and the one in front of him did not seem to be Getsuga Tensho. It was the Gran Rei Zero, who was mixed with Getsuga Tensho. The terrible Getsuga Tensho burst out and hit Yhwach hard, as if to cut his body into two pieces. The fusion of Getsuga Tensho and Gran Rei Zero's flash, born after fusing with all things, is really a very matching power. However, I said, this kind of power is not enough. Yhwach reached out his hands, grabbed the Getsuga that was pressing on him, and threw it out. Ichigo, I admit that your strength just now is very good. It has indeed reached the level where you can knock me down. However, such an opportunity has been lost. Waving his knife to block Kurosaki Ichigo's attack, Yhwach burst out a force in his other hand and sent Kurosaki Ichigo flying. Be careful, there is a trap there. After hitting Kurosaki Ichigo, Yhwach put away his knife and stood up. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo in the middle of the air, he suddenly said. The moment his voice fell, Kurosaki Ichigo landed on the ground. A black shadow suddenly emerged from the ground and stabbed at Kurosaki Ichigo's foot. With a frown, Kurosaki Ichigo jumped up and landed in another place. Oh, there is also one there. The moment Kurosaki Ichigo landed, another spike drilled out. My omniscience can see through the future, and the so-called future will not necessarily only come out of the present road. Kurosaki Ichigo fled everywhere, and as long as he landed, there would be other traps that would suddenly appear, seriously injuring him, and even did not cause any damage to Yhwach, and Kurosaki Ichigo had collapsed to the ground. The so-called future is like scattered grains of sand. At first glance, it is scattered countless grains of sand, but it is actually a future. In other words, there are countless possibilities. Ichigo, I like to talk about the topic of hope. The future can be changed, this is indeed the truth, remarkable fact full of hope. You evolved in battle, this is very good, this is also full of hope. However, the so-called future can be changed, it is just one of those grains of sand, flying to the other. And I am standing on a high place, looking at the grains of sand. Ichigo, don't give up hope. You just have to follow the footsteps until now. Just like before, you just have to roll down the sand on the ground called fate and possibility. Close your eyes and keep flying. This is hope for humans. Don't despair, because there is nothing more painful than killing a desperate child. You say despair. After listening to Yhwach's long speech, Kurosaki Ichigo raised his head and his eyes flashed with an unyielding look. I know it very well, because so far, I have crossed it countless times. Bankai. The already powerful Ryuryoku changed again, and more powerful strength burst out from Kurosaki Ichigo's body. The two Zanpakuto in his hands merged together, and with a burst of strong light, they turned into a brand new Zanpakuto. Getsuga Tensh. Yhwach stretched out his hand, and half of the Zanpakuto fell from his hand and landed on the ground. It was Zangetsu. How? Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes were full of disbelief. What happened? He couldn't feel Yhwach's Ryuryoku at all, he did not even see his movements. Why was Zangetsu broken by him? Don't put on that horrible expression, Ichigo, I am showing respect to your strength. The new Zangetsu is really a terrifying Bankai. After such a judgment, I broke it in the future. I know you don't understand what I am saying, but there is no time for you to slowly understand. Ichigo, I said, don't be careless. Yhwach flashed up, and Kurosaki Ichigo was completely unable to resist under his strength, and wounds appeared on his body. You still can't understand, Ichigo. The omnipotent and omniscient power is not only to see through the future, but to change the future. Looking at Kurosaki Ichigo lying on the ground with wounds all over, Yhwach's tone was indifferent. However, there is no need to be afraid. The power that you possess has not been changed. Just like how you can only intervene in the things in front of you for a moment, I can only interfere with all the futures that are reflected in my eyes. Ichigo, you have never crossed despair and changed the future several times so far. Do you know why you can do it? It is precisely because of my existence that everything about you is reflected in my eyes. Ichigo, try to change the future again. No matter how great the future is, I can see through it. Moreover, I will crush all the futures that you have changed. Yhwach raised the sword in his hand and looked down at Kurosaki Ichigo, who was lying on the ground from a high angle. Feel despair, Ichigo. A foot fell from the sky and kicked Yhwach in the face, sending him flying. Kusu, take Ichigo and Inoue to the side. Muyang. Yhwach stood up and looked at Muyang, who suddenly appeared. There was a flash of anger in his eyes. The kick just now was not heavy and did not cause any damage to Yhwach. However, being kicked in the face, such humiliation is unbearable for Yhwach. Now, what do you think can be changed by your strength? I know your ability. You can affect time to a certain extent. However, your strength is too weak. In front of my omniscience and omnipotence, you have lost all meaning. Just as I said to Ichigo before, no matter what kind of change you can make, you cannot hide in front of my eyes. I can see through it and crush everything you change. If it's only if you can do it. What? If you can do it, try it. Try to change my future with your omniscience. Muyang stepped forward and appeared in front of Yhwach, waving Zanpakuto in his hand. Dang! The two swords collided. In a short period of time, the two had fought hundreds of times, and the result of the fight was that Muyang steadily suppressed Yhwach. How could it be? In the direct collision, he was actually no match for Muyang. Yhwach's face changed and finally returned to calm. No matter how strong Muyang is, it is meaningless in front of his omniscience. The omnipotent and omniscient power was activated, and the invisible power attacked Muyang, but dissipated the moment it touched him. This is the power of the Soul King. Feeling the power of Muyang, Yhwach turned pale. On Muyang's body, there is the power of the Soul King, and only the power of the Soul King can resist his power. Why? Why is the power of the Soul King on you now? Why did the Soul King choose to help Shinigami? Did he develop feelings for Shinigami during those years of protecting Soul Society? Indeed, you have the similar power with Soul King. However, the Soul King has already seen everything about you countless years ago. Countless years ago, the Soul King had already lost the consciousness of being a body. Instead, it had become an existence that maintained the world. However, before this, the Soul King had already seen everything. The scenes that Muyang had seen through the Soul King were all things that the Soul King had seen after crossing a long river of time. Soul King saw Soul Society's development, saw the appearance of Quincy, saw Yhwach's ambition and strength, and at the same time, Soul King also saw Muyang, a person strong enough to carry his strength and stop Yhwach. So what if you have the power of Soul King? I just need to kill you and seize your power from your corpse. I will show you that all your preparations are in vain, this world will be destroyed by me, and the new world belongs to me. Yhwach's power burst out without reservation, and various horrible scenes appeared around Muyang. Although Yhwach's ability to change the future cannot be effective directly on Muyang, he can kill him by affecting the environment around Muyang. How sad. Do you think you can kill me by relying on these? Kimura Muyang stood there motionless as he controlled the timeline, and everything that happened here could not affect him on the other side at all. The loser is pathetic. I really don't want to see it at all. He is like a wild dog barking. Muyang sighed and slowly pulled out his Zanpakuto. The body flashed through the void, and Muyang appeared behind Yhwach and returned his Zanpakuto to its sheath. What a pathetic soul king you are. Your Zanpakuto did not hurt me at all. Fool, who said I cut your body? Reverse light slash. A knife light suddenly bloomed from Yhwach's body. In the void, countless pictures appeared, all of them were Yhwach. A picture flashed by, and Yhwach in the picture became younger and younger, gradually showing the youth Yhwach, his childhood, and his baby form. The only thing that remains unchanged is that in front of every Yhwach, there is a knife light. The picture stops, and what appears in the picture is a newborn baby. He can't see, can't hear, can't speak, can't even move. The knife light cut down, countless pictures shattered like glass, and countless cracks suddenly appeared on Yhwach's body. This is. Seeing the current change in his body, Yhwach was stunned. He could feel that his body suddenly weakened, and his strength was quickly fading. Perhaps in just a moment, he would completely lose his strength, and his body would turn into pieces and dissipate with the wind. I will completely kill you from the root. In short, you will disappear along with your ambition. The clear wind blew, Yhwach's body collapsed and completely dissipated in the Soul King Palace. End of story.